Negotiating and dealing with conflict can be incredibly difficult, especially if you're not talking in your native language. So today's lesson is focused on giving you some of the key phrases and vocabulary that you will need in these circumstances. I want to say a huge thank you to the providers of today's lesson, Lingoda. So this lesson is the lesson you would normally encounter on Lingoda's site. Now, we're not going to work through the whole lesson because Lingoda's lessons last for an hour and we don't have that much time. Plus, Lingoda's lessons involve interaction between the students and the teacher, and we can't really do that on this video. Firstly, I need to make good on a promise. You remember the promise I made to all of you a few months ago when I announced the Lingoda Language Marathon. You remember the Language Marathon, right? You take a class every day for 3 months between January and March, and if you attend every single class for those 3 months and raise your language level, then you get all your money back. Do you remember that one? And the whole point was to try to get you into the habit of learning and to help you to achieve your personal goals, like your New Year's resolutions to become much better in English. And my promise was that anyone entering the marathon would then have a chance to be featured on this channel with me. And lots of you who entered the marathon did get in touch with me and say you would like to be featured. And it turns out that quite a lot of you live here in the UK. And in fact, a couple of you actually live in the same city as me. So I invited one very lucky winner over for a cup of tea. This is Stephanie. Hi Stephanie. Hi, thank you so much for being here. Stephanie, how long have you been watching English Like a Native?
About 6 months.
6 months, fantastic. And luckily you're living here in London. And so what is it that brought you to London?
I moved here because I got a new job in a marketing company.
Why then, if you're in England and you're practicing English, why do you need to do something like the Lingoda Marathon?
I learned English in school for 9 years, and I think my English is okay.
Yeah, it's very good.
Thank you. But in business meetings, I felt not so confident.
So you want to improve your business English to take your career forward. Now you're living in London, there's lots of courses you can do in central London, lots of schools available. Did you consider any of those?
It's really hard because in a marketing company, it's a very busy schedule.
Yes.
And I wasn't able to commit to a certain time every week to do a normal course in school.
So you need something flexible,
yes,
like Lingoda. But if you're really, really busy, did you not find that perhaps the marathon might be a bit much? You know, it's a class every day.
Yes.
Did that not bother you?
It is a lot of work, but it's great because with the marathon, I have to do it every day. So it really it motivates you to really do it every day. Okay. And really go for it.
Yeah, good, great. So far you've already done a month, and may I ask how you feel you're progressing?
Yes, it's going great. I feel like I've really improved my vocabulary, and I feel more confident already. I've had a meeting last week, which was a difficult meeting with a difficult client.
I see.
But I felt much stronger with my expressing my thoughts.
Yeah. Fantastic. So, just for those viewers at home, if you can tell us what you believe are the benefits of being part of the Lingoda Language Marathon.
The flexibility of the Lingoda Language Marathon is great, as I mentioned before. Then also the native teachers, it's great, as you always say. It's easier to learn with a native teacher, and it's the lessons are really structured, which is super helpful and which I think has helped me improve a lot. And yes, because it really keeps the motivation going, because you have to do it every day, and you set your goal and then you hopefully level up at the end. So it's great to keep the motivation going.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. It's actually the first time in all the time I've been running this channel that I've actually got to meet one of my viewers face to face, and that was really exciting for me, and it was great to hear your story. Good luck for the next 2 months. And if hearing Stephanie's story has inspired you, then just click on the link down below to check out Lingoda for yourself. And if you decide to take lessons, then be sure to use this code. This will get you a very special discount. Okay, it's time to start negotiating and dealing with conflict. Are any of these phrases familiar? I'm very sorry that you're put out, but I'm sure we can come to an arrangement. When I put myself in your shoes, I can see you have every right to be angry. Let's try to figure this out. Let's just go through a few parts of that paragraph. So the first thing I said was, I'm very sorry that you're put out. Put out is a phrasal verb. To be put out is to be disappointed or upset. I always imagine it's like being a candle and you're flickering and bright and happy and energetic, and then someone puts you out and suddenly you lose your shine, you lose your happiness, you feel deflated and dark and miserable. You're put out. So I'm very sorry that you're put out, but I'm sure we can come to an arrangement. To come to an arrangement is to have an agreement, some sort of plan that you are both happy with. When I put myself in your shoes, I can see you have every right to be angry. The phrase to put myself in your shoes means I'm seeing it from your point of view. I can understand why you feel that way. When I put myself in your shoes, I can see you have every right to be angry. Let's try to figure this out. Similar to let's come to an arrangement, figuring something out in this context means that you're going to work out a way that you can cooperate for a mutually beneficial outcome so that you're both happy. In what scenarios would we use these types of phrases? Well, in pretty much any scenario where you're having a disagreement with someone. For example, at home, you might have a disagreement with your teenage daughter because she comes in, she makes a terrible mess everywhere she goes, and she doesn't clean up after herself. Urgh. Perhaps your husband has promised that he would do the washing up if you do all the cooking, and you do all the cooking, but he doesn't do the washing up. But it's not just in the home, conflict can also arise at work. Perhaps you feel you deserve a pay rise and everyone else has a pay rise, but you didn't get one. Why? Or perhaps you work in the customer service department and you constantly have to deal with angry customers. Then again, maybe you're going on holiday and you're having a disagreement with someone at the airport because you've just arrived on the holiday of a lifetime, but the airliner has lost your luggage. And on the way home, your flight is delayed by 19 hours. And of course, conflict can arise in a store or with a service provider if you buy something and it's not what you expected or it's not what they promised. So in dealing with conflict of any kind, the most effective thing to do is to negotiate, to have a negotiation. Negotiation is when people or groups of people discuss something. The aim of the discussion is to come to an agreement, even if the involved parties have opposing views. For example, the negotiation took several days, but now both workers and their employers are happy with the new pay rate. Now, if this word or any of the words we're about to cover are new for you, then do try to practice them. This will help to put it into your long-term memory by writing a sentence including that word down in the comments box below. And when I get a chance, I'll have a read, and if it needs correcting, I'll do that for you. And if it's just fabulous, then I will give you some love. Negotiations often involve compromise. Compromise is when one or both parties involved in a negotiation agree to change their minds somewhat or alter their terms in order to find a resolution to a conflict. For example, I'm willing to compromise and work overtime this month since I understand that it's an exceptionally busy period for the company. Dan and Sue have come to a compromise. They won't buy a house in the heart of the city or in the countryside, but instead they're looking for somewhere in the suburbs. So Dan wants to live in the city, Sue wants to live in the country, and that is a conflict. And in order to make both parties relatively happy, they decide to move somewhere in the middle, in the suburbs. It helps when you're negotiating to see things from another person's perspective. Perspective. Your perspective is how you see things, your point of view. Here's an example sentence. It would help if you could see things from her perspective. Seeing things from another person's perspective might help when you're trying to convince them of something. To convince. To convince someone is to make someone believe that what you're saying is right or true. Here's an example sentence. They are trying hard to convince him, but he's still not keen on the idea. So if he's not convinced, then what they will have to do is to persuade him. To persuade someone means to get someone to agree to do something by giving them lots of reasons why they should, by arguing your case. They might not be completely convinced, but you have persuaded them to give it a go. Here's an example sentence. Don't let them persuade you to work on Saturday. You're not obliged to. If you can't persuade or convince someone to see things from your perspective, then you might not be able to resolve the situation. Resolve. To resolve something is to fix it, to come to an understanding, an agreement. Here's an example sentence. If Mary and Sam can't resolve their differences, it might be the end of their relationship. So Mary and Sam are going to have to cooperate in order to resolve their differences. They have to cooperate. To cooperate means to work together. Here's an example. You both play an essential role in the project, so you need to find a way to cooperate. And if you're trying to cooperate, then you may need to come up with alternative solutions to the problem. Alternative. An alternative is basically something similar but different. For example, I promised you a piece of fruit, but you don't like bananas, so as an alternative, I'm offering you a tangerine. This is still a piece of fruit, but it's different to a banana. It's an alternative. So there we have negotiation, compromise, perspective, convince, persuade, resolve, cooperate, and alternative. All right, great vocabulary. Thank you, Lingoda. Let's have a look now at some useful phrases. If the person you're talking to is pretty angry, then the first thing to do is to let them know that you understand why they're angry. You get it. You understand it. You could use these phrases. I understand your point of view. I can see where you're coming from. I'd like to clear up any confusion. I appreciate your honesty. You've got a right to be angry. I understand what you're saying, but try to put yourself in her shoes. And those phrases are a great way to try and calm the situation initially. However, they don't always help you to progress the negotiations for you to put your point across. So let's pick and mix some phrases that will help to show you understand how they're feeling, but then to progress with the negotiation. So you could start with any of the phrases from this column. I hear what you're saying. It's unfortunate things have gotten so heated. If things are heated, it means that they are emotional. Someone's become angry, perhaps they're shouting or crying or just really angry. Maybe steam is coming out of their ears. I understand your point of view and I respect it. I recognize I was at fault and I apologize. I appreciate your apology, but... And then choose a phrase from the second column. But I'd like you to try to understand it from my point of view. I think it'd be best if we could try to resolve our differences. But I think both sides need to compromise to reach an agreement. I would like to try to work together to find a solution. It's not enough. We still have to find a way to resolve the situation. Now let's look at an argument that isn't successful. They don't use any of the words or phrases that we've discussed, and it all goes downhill pretty quickly. Good morning, Mr. Hughes. Is that the best you can manage? I expect an apology. You were supposed to be here at 10 a.m. It's already 11:30. Mr. Hughes, I'm very sorry, but apologising isn't good enough. I don't care what your excuse is. I'm fed up listening to excuses from people who cannot stick to their promises. Mr. Hughes, can you please listen to... You want me to listen to you? The cheek of it, the nerve, when I'm the one who's been waiting here all this time. Mr. Hughes, I have the email that you wrote here. Look, it was you who asked me to come at 11:30 a.m. And now you're standing there shouting abuse at me. Well, I've had enough. Find someone else to fit your kitchen. I don't need your business. Damn it! That didn't go very well, did it? And that's because they didn't follow the key rules to conflict management and negotiation. What are those key rules, I hear you ask? Well, they are: stay calm at all times. Getting heated, emotional, upset and shouting just doesn't help anyone. So try to remain calm. Listen to the other person. In the example that you just saw, Mr. Hughes did not listen. If he had have listened, then he wouldn't have embarrassed himself and lost one of his workers. So always give the other person a chance. Listen to their grievances, and then you might be able to come to some sort of arrangement. Acknowledge their point of view. We all feel better when people understand us. So let the other people know that you've listened and that you understand why they feel that way and where they're coming from. Explain your demands clearly. Give reasons why they are justified. Let the other person know exactly what you want and why you want it, why it's necessary. Once they understand that properly, then it might make things a little bit easier. So now you have some vocabulary, phrases, and the key rules to conflict management and negotiation. As I said earlier, I've only taken a snippet from the Lingoda lesson notes, but thank you, Lingoda, for sharing those with us. And if you are interested in checking out more of what Lingoda has to offer, then don't forget to use the link below and the code to get that very special discount. Thanks once again to the marathon runner Stephanie. It was fantastic to meet you. And all that's left to say is take care, try not to get into too many conflicts, and goodbye.